की जय।
Jai.
Yeah.
अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय।
Jai.
ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki jai।
Jai.
Yeah.
नामाचार्य Srila Haridas Thakur की जय।
Jai.
प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय।
Jai.
श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंद राधा कुंद गिरि गोवर्धन की जय।
Jai.
Jai.
वृंदावन धाम की जय।
Jai.
Jai.
नवद्वीप मायापुर धाम की जय।
Jai.
Jai.
गंगा माई की जय।
Jai.
Jai.
यमुना माई की जय।
Jai.
Jai.
तुलसी देवी की जय।
Jai.
Jai.
भक्ति देवी की जय।
Jai.
Jai.
समवेता भक्तवृंद की जय।
Jai.
Jai.
गौर प्रेम आनंदे।
Hari.
Hari
All
Hari Bol.
glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
All glory to Sri Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga Hari Hari Bol. Nama
Hari Bol.
Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Shami Iti Namane. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravane Pracharine Nirbhishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo
Bhagavate
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Hare Krishna. Welcome everybody. We're reading, studying, and discussing Sri Caitanya Caritamrita, Adi Lila, the pastimes of the Lord in his childhood and youth. Text 51.
প্রভু কহেন অতএব পুছিয়ে তোমারে বিচারিয়া গুণ দোষ বুঝাও আমারে।
Taking a humble position, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, because I am not at your level, on your level, I have asked you to teach me by explaining the faults and good qualities in your poetry.
নাহি পড়ি অলঙ্কার করিয়াছি শ্রবণ তাতে এই শ্লোকে দেখি বহু দোষ গুণ।
Certainly, I have not studied the art of literary embellishments, but I have heard about it from higher circles. And thus I can review this verse and find in it many faults and many good qualities. Purport. The statement, Kariyachi Shravan, I have heard it, is very important in the sense that hearing is more important than directly studying or perceiving. If one is expert in hearing and hears from the right source, his knowledge is immediately perfect. This process is called protapanta, or the acquisition of knowledge by hearing from authorities. All Vedic knowledge is based on the principle that one must approach a bona fide spiritual master and hear from him the authoritative statements of the Vedas. it is not necessary for one to be a highly polished literary man to receive knowledge. To receive perfect knowledge from a perfect person, one must be expert in hearing. This is called the descending process of deductive knowledge, or avaroha panta. Om agyana timirantasya gyananjana shalakaya chakshurun militam jena tasmai shri gurave namah. Shri Chaitanya manobhishtam sthapitam jena bhutale shayam rupakatah mahyam dadati sha pandantikam. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivashadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Before speaking, I'd like to ask for the permission and blessings of you all, particularly those who are senior by age or advancement in Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna. So to recap just briefly, do you remember this is Lord Chaitanya is discussing having an interaction with Keshava Kashmiri, yeah, on the bank of the Ganges. He has his students there also. Do you remember what time of day it is? The only reason I remember is because in my mind, I had it in the middle of the day sometime or the morning, but actually it's in the evening time, it says earlier. So if we're thinking it's in the evening here.
Sandhya.
Yes. And so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu met this Keshav Kashmiri, who's also known as Digvijay. And he asked him to compose some poetry in glorification of Mother Ganges, which the poet Keshav Kashmiri immediately did. In just a short time, he composed 100 verses in this glorification of Mother Ganges. So here Lord Chaitanya has asked Keshav Kashmiri to explain the embellishments or the good qualities and faults, and which is very surprising to us, and also to the Digvijay, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at that time was just a young teenager, and the Kashmiri was a great, learned, famous pundit. So how could there be some faults? He's thinking. So Srila Prabhupada here in the purport is describing that, as Lord Chaitanya said, even though he hadn't studied deeply the art of poetry, still, because he'd heard from authorities, he's proposing he was able to understand and delineate on what the faults and good qualities might be. So the process of hearing from authorities, those who actually know, is this is the essential point of making spiritual progress. Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Tad vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena, thank you, pariprashnena sevaya, upadikshanti te jnanam, jnaninas tattvadashina.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so if you want to understand tad, that knowledge, tad, that knowledge, if you want to understand it, you have to approach a bona fide spiritual master. Service is beginning with hearing, pariprashnena, and offer respects. Even sometimes said also that prior to even hearing there's another important ingredient of knowledge mentioned by Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, 13th chapter, where he describes the process of knowledge. I don't know if you know this. Yeah, there's a long list of qualities. The process, he calls it the process of knowledge.
Should be in humility.
Yes, yes, good, very good. Amanitvam adambitvam, ahimsa, then acharyupashanam. Pridelessness, humility and pridelessness, and non-violence. And then it's described approaching a spiritual master, hearing from them, the worship of the spiritual master. So, in this way, Lord Chaitanya is demonstrating here. If, Lord Krishna says, but if you approach the spiritual master, Tattvadarshi, someone who actually knows what's going on, who has a clear vision of what's happening both on the material plane and the spiritual plane, and if that person tells you what's going on, and you accept it, and you hear it, and understand it, then you can know. Very simple process. Just like a kid, they say, ask their mom or their dad, what is that? Oh, that's an elephant. Okay, so then the child can know, as long as the parent is not cheating or the parent knows. So in a similar fashion, hearing from someone who knows is a perfect process of knowledge. And there's a slight adjustment to that, or a slight asterisk here. And I don't know if you caught this. He says, Srila Prabhupada mentioned it twice here in this purport that I found very interesting. He said, if one is expert in hearing, and then he says later, if to receive knowledge, to receive perfect knowledge from a perfect person, one must be expert in hearing. So I thought about that for some time, and I was wondering about that. I thought I'd ask you what you think of that means, expert in hearing. You know, we think of expert how to drive a car, or expert how to cook a preparation, or expert how to distribute books, or expert how to play the mridanga. You don't hear too much expert in hearing, do you? So what ingredients might you include in expert in hearing, if you don't mind asking?
Paying attention.
Attentive hearing.
Yeah, that's a really important part. We know that when Srila Prabhupada approached his spiritual master for initiation, and so his Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had marked him. He said, "Oh, I know this person. Yes, he was very interested. He was very interested in hearing. Therefore, I'll accept him as a disciple." Yeah, so he was attentive. And one time, when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was speaking, Srila Prabhupada it sounded like either touched on the back of the shoulder or something by an older gentleman there, and he turned around to try to see what was to discuss with the person what they wanted, and immediately, you know what Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur did? Huh? He chastised him immediately chastised him. Why? And that was even before you had cell phones, where you could, just a little bit of inattention was not pleasing to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, because the mind wanders, and if we pay careful attention, then there's of course better opportunity to understand. I would say that there's probably a little more to expert than just than being attentive, although that is the prime importance. Anything else you might add?
Without speculation.
Okay, without mental speculation, sure. And yes, something more also, I'm thinking. Anyone?
Clear mind.
Clear mind, not being distracted, yeah. I would say also, go ahead, Mother Shobharati.
Having faith that you're listening to somebody with authority.
Yes, yes, yes. I would agree with that. Yes, that and that having faith means that this is transcendental information, transcendental knowledge, and I will try to understand it. How does it fit in? And even if I don't understand it immediately, to have faith that it's still, I don't understand it right now, but at a certain point, I'm going to pray and try to understand it and see how it works. And Krishna helpfully will let me understand eventually. Srila Prabhupada said, hearing, he would go on hearing from his spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And he said, I didn't always understand. Because Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to speak in very elaborate, we did say, vocabulary that was quite elevated. Sometimes one doesn't understand. So sometimes it's just that go on hearing, but continuing to hear with the appreciation, understanding that this is, as Mother Shobharati said, faith in the process and in the information, the knowledge that's being passed on here. Very important stuff. So that's our process. Just as we're doing here, reading and hearing the Caitanya Charitamrita given to us by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami and His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, we can know. So this part of the Caitanya Charitamrita, where this discussion is going on, I also was thinking about this today. How does it apply in our lives? Because Lord Chaitanya, he's asking Keshava Kashmiri to identify the faults and good qualities. So as we read through this, I would like each one of you to think about what does it mean, and how this might apply to Krishna consciousness in general, or your life, or something like that. Keep that in mind, because this Lord Chaitanya, being the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he is the Kali Yuga avatar, he's the person, an incarnation of God for this age particularly. How does it figure in this particular pastime? Okay? Okay. All right. Questions, comments, additions? No? Okay. Thank you.
কবি কহে কহ দেখি কোন গুণ দোষ প্রভু কহেন কহি শুনো না করিহ রোষ.
The poet said, all right, let me see what good qualities and faults you have found. The Lord replied, let me speak, and please hear me without becoming angry.
পঞ্চ দোষ এই শ্লোকে পঞ্চ অলঙ্কার ক্রমে আমি কহি শুনো করহ বিচার.
My dear sir, in this verse, there are 5 faults and 5 literary ornaments. I shall state them one after another. Kindly hear me and then give your judgment. Purport. Now, this is referring back to the poetry that Keshav Kashmiri authored. In the verse beginning with Mahatvam Gangaya, there are 5 literary ornaments and 5 examples of faulty composition. There are 2 examples of the fault called Avimrishta Vidhyangsha, and 1 example each of the faults Virudhimati, Punarukti, and Bhagnakrama. Vimrishta means clean, and Vidhayanksha means predicate. It is a general rule of composition to establish a subject first and then give its predicate. For example, according to Sanskrit grammar, if one says, "This man is learned," his composition is in order. But if one says, "Learned is this man," the composition is not in order. Such a flaw is called avimishta videyanksha dosh, non-clean, or the fault of unclean composition. The subject matter to be known of the verse is the glorification of the Ganges. And therefore the word idam, or what is known, should have been placed before instead of after the glorification. The subject matter already known should be placed before the unknown, so that its meaning will not be misconstrued. You got that, right? The second instance of avimrishta videyanksha dosh occurs in the words Dvitiya Sri Lakshmir Iva. In this competition, the word Dvitiya is Vidheya, or unknown. We were talking here. Placing the unknown first to make the compound word Dvitiya Sri Lakshmir is another fault. The word Dvitiya Sri Lakshmir Iva, the words, were intended to compare the Ganges to the goddess of fortune, but because of this fault, the meaning of the compound word was bewildering. The third fault is that of viruddha mati, or contradictory conception. In the words Bhavani Bhartu, the word Bhavani refers to the wife of Bhava, Lord Shiva. But since Bhavani is already known as the wife of Lord Shiva, to add the word Bharta, husband, thus forming a compound meaning, the husband of the wife of Lord Shiva, is contradictory, for thus it appears as if the wife of Lord Shiva has another husband. The fourth fault is punarukti, or redundancy, which occurs when the verb vibhavati flourishes, which should have ended the composition, is further qualified by the unnecessary adjective adbhuta guna, endowed with wonderful qualities. And the fifth fault is bhagnakrama, which means broken order. In the first, third, and fourth lines, there is anupras, or alliteration, created by the sounds ta, ra, and bha. But in the second line, there's no such anupras, and therefore the order is broken. So Srila Prabhupada there gave a summary of all the five faults designated by Caitanya Mahaprabhu. And although the Kashmiri posed 100 verses, we don't have all 100 verses. We just have this one verse that Caitanya Mahaprabhu is analyzing. So in our lives, we don't have, perhaps most of us at least, don't have much involvement with composing poetry. And even if we compose poetry, we most likely don't follow the Sanskrit grammatical rules for composing it, even if you translate it into English. So this is a very detailed analysis of this poetry given by Keshav Kashmiri. So I would like to ask you what you think, or what your understanding is, how this might apply to an overall appreciation and understanding of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his pastimes as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I'm asking for your input if you like. I know it's a tough one. Who do we have here on this call?
Well,
Krishna Kirtan Prabhu. Yes.
so first of all, as you said, we are not; those are not expertise for us. These subjects. Second thing is, Keshav Kashmiri is Digvijay. He's such a learned person. He's such a learned person. Third is, on the other side, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, who knows everything. And as a Digvijay, Keshav Kashmiri is also very expert in all this in poetry. All we can take is the essence of it. It's not, that may not be a subject matter for us to learn, rather take essence of it, that one should not be proud. And man, even I was thinking, such a Digvijay, how he could do, minor mistakes can be done. I think Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is simply correcting him and showering his mercy to him by removing his pride. That's the essence I hear.
Good. Yeah. So you're citing that Lord Chaitanya is curbing his pride, perhaps something like Lord Krishna curbed the pride of Indra or something like that.
Yeah.
So that's an important aspect of this. Yeah, good. Others. Anyone else like to say something about this? Of course, it's not said specifically in the report here, but I was kind of praying or asking Krishna to help out on this one. In our understanding of Lord Krishna, who's Lord Chaitanya is the full incarnation of Lord Krishna in the mood of Srimati Radharani, we say, Vaidashta Sarvair Ahang Eva Vedyo. There's that verse in Bhagavad Gita, Sarvasya Chaham Ridhifa Shani Vishnu. Yeah. Mata Smritir Jnanam Apohan. From me comes knowledge, remembrance. By all the Vedas, I am to be known. And I'm the compiler of the Vedas, and I know the Vedanta as it is. The actual word Veda means knowledge. So Lord Krishna, as Krishna Kirtan Prabhu nicely said, is the source of all knowledge. He is the source of the Vedas and the source of all whatever knowledge is there, whether it's poetry, music, engineering, computers, anything, whatever knowledge is there, any scientific knowledge, Lord Krishna, the actual knowledge is known by Lord Krishna. He's the source of knowledge and he's the knower of it. So even these very, very detailed aspects of the composition of poetry, Lord Chaitanya was right there. He knew exactly what was going on, and he could analyze it perfectly. So that's a part of the pastime that I'm thinking about and appreciating, that every branch of knowledge, whatever it may be, psychology, sociology, astrology, astronomy, archaeology, everything, the Supreme Personality of Godhead knows it in detail, complete detail, because he's the one who created everything and who's arranging everything, either directly or through his agents, directly or indirectly. So even this piece of knowledge, which in perhaps with me, it's a little bit obscure, but Lord Caitanya immediately could show that he understands completely everything about this poetic composition and improves and points out the faults and good qualities of it. Does that make sense? What do you think?
Yeah, that's certainly.
Okay. It's not mentioned here, but I just thought that it helped me to put this in perspective, what's going on here. At least that thought, how Caitanya, it's just, here's one example, but there could be many different kinds of examples, and there will be. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Next.
অবিমৃষ্ট বিধেয়াংশ দুই ঠাঁই চিহ্ন বিরুদ্ধমতি ভগ্নক্রম পুনরাত্ম দোষ ৩
In this verse, the fault of Avimrishta Vidyangsha occurs twice, and the faults of Viruddhamati, Bhagnakrama, and Punarata occur once each.
গঙ্গার মহত্ব শ্লোকে মূল বিধেয় ইদম শব্দে অনুবাদ পাছে অবিধেয়
The glorification of the Ganges, Mahatvam Gangaya, is the principal unknown subject matter in this verse, and the known subject matter is indicated by the word idam, which has been placed after the unknown.
বিধেয় আগে কহি পাছে কহিল অনুবাদ এই লাগি শ্লোকের অর্থ করিয়াছে বাদ
Because you have placed the known subject at the end and that which is unknown at the beginning, the composition is faulty and the meaning of the words has become doubtful.
This is Sanskrit.
Anuvadam anuktaiva vaiva navidheyam udirayet nahyala nahi ala bhadaspadam kinchit kutrachit patipashtati. Without first mentioning what is known, we should not introduce the unknown, for that which has no solid basis can never be established anywhere. This is a verse from the Ekadashi Tattva. So another thought along with what I had said previously is that, there are many, many, many branches of knowledge, and most of us don't have thorough understanding of any of them, maybe one, perhaps one or two, but those who are involved in a particular branch of knowledge, it becomes very important to them, and they know the thing in very, very great detail. So not only is this, so for Keshav Kashmiri, the composing of the Sanskrit verses was quite important. And Lord Chaitanya also exhibits its importance because of his analysis, very keen analysis and understanding to be able to elucidate and enlighten Keshav Kashmiri. So he's using the whatever knowledge Keshav Kashmiri has to help him progress in his spiritual life by learning to surrender to Lord Chaitanya. So Lord Krishna can use everything in that way. Okay, text 59.
দ্বিতীয় শ্রীলক্ষ্মী ইহা দ্বিতীয়ত্ব বিধেয় সমাসে গৌণ হইল শব্দার্থ গেল ক্ষয়
In the word Dvitiya Sri Lakshmi, a second all opulence goddess of fortune, the quality of being a second Lakshmi is the unknown. In making this compound word, the meaning became secondary and the originally intended meaning was lost.
দ্বিতীয় শব্দ বিধেয় তাহা পড়িল সমাসে লক্ষ্মীর সমতা অর্থ করিল বিনাশে
Because the word Dvitiya, second, is the unknown, in its combination in this compound word, the intended meaning of equality with Lakshmi is lost.
অবিমৃষ্ট বিধেয়াংশ এই দোষের নাম। আর এক দোষ আছে, শুনো সাবধান।
Not only is there the fault of avimishta vidyangsha, but there's also another fault, which I shall point out to you. Kindly hear me with great attention.
ভবানী ভর্তুঃ শব্দ দিলে পাইয়া সন্তোষ, বিরুদ্ধ মতিকৃত নাম এই মহাদোষ।
Here is another great fault. You have arranged the word Bhavani Bhartri to your great satisfaction, but this betrays the fault of contradiction.
ভবানী শব্দে কহে মহাদেবের গৃহিণী, তার ভর্তা কহিলে দ্বিতীয় ভর্তা জানি।
The word Bhavani means the wife of Lord Shiva, but when we mention her husband, one might conclude that she has another husband.
শিবপত্নীর ভর্তা ইহা শুনিতে বিরুদ্ধ, বিরুদ্ধ মতিকৃত শব্দ শাস্ত্রে নহে শুদ্ধ।
It is contradictory to hear that Lord Shiva's wife has another husband. The use of such words in literature creates the fault called viruddha matikrit.
ব্রাহ্মণ পত্নীর ভর্তার হস্তে দেহদান শব্দ শুনিতেই হয় দ্বিতীয় ভর্তা জ্ঞান।
If someone says, place this charity in the hand of the husband of the wife of the Brahmin, when we hear these contradictory words, we immediately understand that the Brahma's wife has another husband.
বিভবতী ক্রিয়ার বাক্য সাঙ্গ পুনঃ বিভবতী ক্রিয়ার বাক্য সঙ্গ পুনঃ বিশেষণ অদ্ভুত গুণা এই পুনরাত্ম দূষণ।
The statement by the word vibhavati, flourishes, is complete. Qualifying it with the adjective adbhuta guna, wonderful qualities, creates the fault of redundancy.
তিন পাদে অনুপ্রাস দেখি অনুপম, এক পাদে নাহি এই দোষ ভগ্নক্রম।
There is extraordinary alliteration in 3 lines of the verse, but in 1 line, there is no such alliteration. That is the fault of deviation.
যদ্যপি এই শ্লোকে আছে পঞ্চ অলঙ্কার, এই পঞ্চ দোষে শ্লোক কইল ছারখার।
Although there are 5 literary ornaments decorating this verse, the entire verse has been spoiled by these 5 most faulty presentations.
10 অলঙ্কারে যদি এক শ্লোক হয়, এক দোষে সব অলঙ্কার হয় ক্ষয়।
If there are 10 literary ornaments in a verse, but even one faulty expression, the entire verse is nullified.
সুন্দর শরীর জয়ছে ভূষণে ভূষিত, এক শ্বেত কুষ্টে জয়ছে করয়ে বিগীত।
One's beautiful body may be decorated with jewels, but one spot of white leprosy makes the entire body abominable. Purport. The great sage Bharat Muni, an authority on poetic metaphor, has given his opinion as follows. This is Sanskrit.
Yes.
Rasalankar vat kavyam dosha yukcheta vibhushitam syadvapu sundaramapi sviteranaika durbhagam. As one's body, although well decorated with ornaments, is made unfortunate by even one spot of white leprosy, so an entire poem is made useless by a fault, despite alliteration, similes, and metaphors. Sometimes the English equivalent would be, you have a spot on a white cloth. You know, have a spot on a white cloth is similar to this idea. Okay.
পঞ্চ অলঙ্কারের এবে শুনহ বিচার, দুই শব্দালঙ্কার, তিন অর্থ অলঙ্কার।
Now, hear the descriptions of the 5 literary embellishments. There are 2 ornaments of sound and 3 ornaments of meaning.
শব্দালঙ্কার 3 পাদে আছে অনুপ্রাস। শ্রীলক্ষ্মী শব্দে পুনরুক্ত বদাভাস।
There is a sound ornament of alliteration in 3 lines. And in the combination of the words Shri and Lakshmi, there's the ornament of a tinge of redundancy.
প্রথম চরণে পঞ্চ তকারের পাঁতি, তৃতীয়া চরণে হয় পঞ্চ রেপ স্থিতি।
In the arrangement of the first line, the letter ta occurs 5 times, and the arrangement of the third line repeats the letter ra 5 times.
চতুর্থ চরণে চারি ভকার প্রকাশ, অতএব শব্দালঙ্কার অনুপ্রাস।
In the 4th line, the letter bha occurs 4 times. This arrangement of alliteration is a pleasing ornamental use of sounds.
শ্রী শব্দে লক্ষ্মী শব্দে এক বস্তু উক্ত। শ্রী শব্দে লক্ষ্মী শব্দে এক বস্তু উক্ত, পুনরুক্ত প্রায় ভাষে, নহে পুনরুক্ত।
Although the words Shri and Lakshmi convey the same meaning and are therefore almost redundant, they are nevertheless not redundant.
শ্রীযুক্ত লক্ষ্মী অর্থের বিভেদ, পুনরুক্ত বদাভাস, শব্দালঙ্কার ভেদ।
Describing Lakshmi as possessed of Shri, opulence, offers a difference in meaning with a tinge of repetition. This is the second ornamental use of the words.
লক্ষ্মীরিব অর্থালঙ্কার উপমা প্রকাশ, আর অর্থালঙ্কার আছে নাম বিরোধাভাস।
The use of the words Lakshmir Iva, like Lakshmi, manifests the ornament of meaning called upama, analogy. There is also the further ornament of meaning called virodhabhasha, or a contradictory indication.
গঙ্গাতে কমল জন্মে সবার সুবোধ, কমলে গঙ্গার জন্ম অত্যন্ত বিরোধ।
Everyone knows that lotus flowers grow in the water of the Ganges. But to say that the Ganges takes birth from a lotus flower seems extremely contradictory. Don't move it down. Don't move it down. Everyone knows that lotus flowers grow in the water of the Ganges, but to say that the Ganges takes birth from a lotus flower seems extremely contradictory. So how will you, do you have any idea how that would take place? The Ganges taking birth from a lotus flower? Anybody?
Your vision, how you see it. Sometimes it is said that sun is inside the sunshine. Somebody can say sunshine sun is the source of sunshine. So how you see, when you see, it looks like sun is inside the sunshine.
Yeah. So then how does that apply to a lotus flower being the source of the Ganges?
Lotus flower, it's referring, maybe you can say in another, because it's coming from the lotus feet.
Ah, okay. Good. Okay, next verse.
ইহা বিষ্ণুপাদ পদ্মে গঙ্গার উৎপত্তি বিরোধালঙ্কার ইহা মহা চমৎকৃত.
The existence of Mother Ganges begins from the lotus feet of the Lord. Although the statement that water comes from a lotus flower is a contradiction, in connection with Lord Vishnu, it is a great wonder.
ঈশ্বর অচিন্ত শক্তে গঙ্গার প্রকাশ ইহাতে বিরোধ নাহি বিরোধাভাস.
In this birth of the Ganges, by the inconceivable potency of the Lord, there is no contradiction, although it appears contradictory. Purport. The central point of all Vaishnava philosophy is to accept the inconceivable potency of Lord Vishnu. What sometimes appears contradictory from a material point of view, from a material viewpoint, is understandable in connection with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because he can perform contradictory activities by dint of his inconceivable potencies. Modern scientists are puzzled. They cannot even explain how such a large quantity of chemicals has formed the atmosphere. Scientists explain that water is a combination of hydrogen and oxygen. But when asked where such a large quantity of hydrogen and oxygen came from, and how they combine to manufacture the great oceans and seas, they cannot answer, because they're atheists who will not accept that everything comes from life. Their thesis is that life comes from matter. So where do all the chemicals come from? The answer is that they are produced by the inconceivable energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Living entities are part of the Supreme Godhead, and from their bodies come many chemicals. For example, the lemon tree is a living entity that produces many lemons. And within each lemon is a great deal of citric acid. Therefore, if even an insignificant living entity who is but a part of the Supreme Lord can produce so much of a chemical, how much potency there must be in the body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Scientists cannot explain where the chemicals of the world are manufactured, but one can explain this perfectly by accepting the inconceivable energy of the Supreme Lord. There is no reason for denying this argument, since there are potencies in the living entities who are samples of the personality of Godhead. How much potency there must be in the Supreme Personality of Supreme Godhead himself. As stated in the Vedas, Nityo Nityanam Chaitanas Chaitananam, he is the chief eternal of all eternals and is the chief living entity among all living entities. Kata Upanishad 2:13. Unfortunately, atheistic science will not accept that matter comes from life. Scientists insist that upon their most illogical and foolish theory that life comes from matter, although this is quite impossible. They cannot prove in their laboratories that matter can produce life, yet there are thousands and thousands of examples illustrating that matter comes from life. Therefore, in Sri Caitanya Caritamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says that as soon as one accepts the inconceivable potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, no great philosopher or scientist can put forward any thesis to contradict the Lord's power. This is expressed in the following Sanskrit verse. So You've got the analogy that Srila Prabhupada made about the lemon tree. And what is that? You got that, Mother Vindhyavali? What's that analogy he made about the lemon?
Produces acid.
Yeah, so the little lemon tree produces acid, so therefore then what? What? It's a tiny little lemon tree. Produces all this chemical. So how many chemicals can the Supreme Personality of Godhead produce? Yeah, he can produce these whole oceans and skies and stuff like that. Yeah. This is so the point being that the chemicals being produced from life. So the consideration and faith that God has inconceivable potencies. Prabhupada says that there's so many myriad examples of that principle. So I thought maybe we could look at or remember some of those apparent contradictions of which are examples of Lord Krishna's, Lord Chaitanya's inconceivable potency. I'm open for hearing from you. If you know any examples of this inconceivable potency that seems contradictory. Krishna Kirtan has an example.
First of all, he said it's inconceivable, and its natural is inconceivable because we are conditioned to see and learn. And when it comes to saying that these things are coming from the Lord, it is inconceivable for us to understand and accept.
Yes.
Only by gradual hearing process that ignorance is destroyed and we start analyzing and understanding by Lord and devotee's mercy. And many.
So can you give an example of one aspect of inconceivable potency that's seems contradictory, but in the Lord it's not contradictory.
Seems contradictory, but not a contradictory, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. When Mother Yashoda saw Krishna, saw universal form in his Krishna's mouth, and it's income because Krishna is within the universe at that time. At that time, still the whole universe is in the mouth of Krishna.
Yes.
So,
very good. So he's at the same time he's inside and outside everything. I mean, where does that happen? If you're inside the house, how can you be outside the house? Doesn't work, right? But for Lord Krishna, he could be inside the universe and outside the universe, the source of the universe at the same time. Very good. Other examples. Anyway, so I was thinking of this verse, Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Manantarupam Madhyam Purana Purusham Navayovanam Cha. He's Advaitam. He's one. Anantarupam, but has unlimited forms. Usually if there's one, you can't have many. Advaita, but in Krishna's one, but he can expand himself in unlimited forms. He is Adyam, Purana Purusham, the oldest. But he's Navayovanam Cha. At the same time, he's the oldest, but he's also the fresh youth. This is contradictory, isn't it? Adyam Purana Purusham Navayovanam Cha. Some of these are, things that are contradictory. Come on, you know some more of these. These are fun. This is thinking.
Smaller than the smallest and bigger than the biggest.
Yeah, Anoraniyam Mahato Mahiyan. Something can be small, an atom, and something can be gigantic like the universe, but can they be both at the same time? That's God, that's Krishna. Yeah, Anoraniyam Mahato Mahiyan. smaller than the smallest and bigger. He's within the atoms, inside the atom and between the atoms, but also the source of all the universes. Gigantic. Mahavishnu. These things. Anyway, these are so.
Would the idea that Krishna is in everything and a part of everything, but also aloof from everything, be an
Yes,
example? to talk about?
yes. He says that Mayata Tamidam Saravam. I am there everywhere in this creation, but still I am aloof. I'm not there. So he's here, he's everywhere, but he's not there. It sounds like word jugglery, right? Oh, he's here, but he's not here. But he's here by his manifestations, his energy, his expansion. But still, his original self is the source of everything, creation in spiritual sky. Good. I also thought of Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. He's Om, he's perfect and complete, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And even though so many complete units emanate from him, he is not diminished in any way. He remains the complete balance. 1 minus 1 is 1 in that sense. So this is materially doesn't make sense, but for Lord Krishna, it makes sense. So in this case, there's some contradiction between the lotus flower being the source of the Ganges and the lotus flowers growing in the Ganges, but in relation to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, those contradictions are cleared away. Okay. Thank you very much. Hare
There-
Krishna.
The one comment I wanted to make.
Oh, please.
I'm sorry. So now, we can understand, because the purpose of this conversation is not literally Lord Chaitanya is not finding fault in him, I believe, because he knows that living entities will have always imperfection. That's why when we offer prayers, when we offer yajna, when we offer arti, we say that please forgive us our mistakes. And at the same time, Narad Muni explained to Vyasdev, even though literature is imperfectly compiled, if you glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that is way better. So I think that Lord Chaitanya is literally is not finding the fault in it, rather is humbling in one sense, because we will be always imperfect. Isn't it that Bhagavatam, Krishna and Chaitanya, Narad Muni explains, such transcendental literatures, even though imperfectly composed, are heard, sung, and accepted by purified men who are thoroughly honest. So the prayers there for Ganga, it'll be hard for anything to be composed 100% perfect, but Krishna accepts the essence of it, and he purifies his devotees. At the same time, this past time we learned that how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Supreme Personality of Godhead. He knows everything.
Yes. Well, you're making the point that Lord Chaitanya isn't finding fault. But on the other hand, the spiritual master and Lord Krishna is, as representing the spiritual master also here, Lord Chaitanya, their job is to find fault.
Yeah, find fault means literally not finding faults, making them, helping them improving, right?
Yeah, but that part of it is finding fault.
Yeah.
But with the disciple, with the subordinate.
But unfortunately, sometimes disciples think that how come spiritual master is finding fault?
Yeah, who do you tell me what to do? Who are you?
Right.
Why should you? Yeah. So that's why the beginning of knowledge is amanitvam adambitvam. So, but and pariprashnena sevaya. Yeah. So Lord Chaitanya is pointing these things out, and he says, as he said, please don't become angry at me.
It's an interesting statement. That is a very good point. That fault finding is a bad thing, But as a teacher, you have to find the fault, and then the disciple cannot find, he's a fault finder.
Yes, yes. So Srila Prabhupada would sometimes say, he would sometimes, would be finding fault with people, and then he would apologize for it. And then devotees would say, no, if you don't, there's a famous exchange of Srila Prabhupada and Bhakti Charu Swami, where Srila Prabhupada chastised him very strongly. And then afterwards he said, I'm sorry I had to do this, but you're the disciple. And Bhakti Charu Swami said, no, if you don't correct me, who will do it? That is a difficulty, especially for older disciples like me, unless somebody corrects me, who's going to do it, right? We get set in our ways, right? But it's important.
Vindhyavali
Devotees.
Mataji.
What's that?
You'll have Vindhyavali Mataji.
Yes,
Correct.
that's good. Good. And she does. She chastises me sometimes. I know that. Which is good. It's good for me.
But
All right.
the thing that I noticed was that he also talked about the positive points. And I mean, we are nowhere near Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and we're not trying to imitate him, but also mentioning, so that means he critically analyzed the poetry. He noticed everything about it, the good and the bad.
Good point. Good point. Yes. Thank you.
And the thing is, now does the modern critic we are asked to do is first give the positive point, then give the corrections, then give the another positive point. So I think Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had
Yes.
it doing things. Anyway, just sharing. Hare Krishna.
Yes. Thank you for your contributions, thoughts. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripasindhubhyev cha patitanam pavanebhyo
Vaishnavebhyo
Vaishnavebhyo namo
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu.